Are you ready for question number one?
Let's go.
So we are talking about quiet quitting. This is the big topic that we're covering. Question one is, how does the generational gap affect culture in today's work environment?
Well, having my doctorate in this area, I've spent a little bit of time on this subject, and I'm going to answer it in two ways. One, it makes a big difference, and two, it doesn't make that much of a difference. So let me explain. Right now, we have an unprecedented time in American corporate history, in that for the first time we have up to 4 generations that are in their adult mode in corporate America. We have boomers, we have millennials, we have Yers, and then we have Zers. And the only other one is post-World War II generation, but there's very few of them left in the workforce. But the reality is this: all 4 generations are shaped by different experiences that has become part of how they view the world. And it's not that one is better than the other, but they're all different. And so, give you an example of how generations play itself out. I'm a boomer. Now, this is more of an attitude than even though I'm a boomer age-wise, I really think like a millennial. And so how I view work is completely different as a boomer than how a millennial or a Y or Zer. And so the boomers were taught or were modeled that if you really want to have commitment to your company, there's a price, and your family has to pay the price. And that the mark of commitment is 16 hours a day, 6 days a week, and that you eat, live, and breathe work. And that it was also in a generation that work, what you did in a deep sense, defined who you are. And so the other thing that you need to know is one of the core values of the boomer generation is more. More is more. And they were raised by a generation of post-World War II folks who said, my job is to help you to have a better life than what I had. We all heard that from our grandparents.
I don't want you to struggle.
That's right. I don't want you to struggle. And if I had a little bit of stability, I want you to have a lot of stability. If I had a few things that brought me joy, I want you to have a lot of things that bring you joy. And as a result, the whole value of more is always better. And so it took root. So that plays itself out in everything. If you're committed at 10 hours a day, there's someone that's going to say, well, why don't you give me more and show me commitment at 12 hours a day? And if it's been 5 days a week, why don't you give me 6 days a week? Because ultimately, that defines your level of loyalty to this company. Well, there was a group of people who paid the price for that.
Okay.
And the people who paid the price for that were the kids of the boomers. And they were the first generation that we call latchkey kids. They were the generation, the economic infrastructure of the United States still had not grown to the point that it could support a standard 2-income family. It was still, back in the 70s, it was still an infrastructure that supported dad go to work, mom stay at home and be in her place, so to speak. And so now the late 70s come along, moms are now joining the workforce. They're developing their own professions, but nursing care, daycare centers, all of the things that schools offered before and after, none of that existed back then. And so guess who came home for 3 to 4 hours after school every day and they stayed by themselves?
Kids, yeah.
It's the millennials. And so they grew up having to fend for themselves. They also grew up watching their dads not come to baseball games. I think my dad came to one. I played college basketball, and in all high school and in college, he never attended a single game, but he attended one one-on-one tournament that I was in when I was in the finals in 8th grade. That was the only time I ever saw my dad. And you know what? I expected that. I didn't know anything else.
You accepted it.
I accepted it as long as mom was there. And so you grow up with those memories, and you grow up with this sadness that I know I'm second. And when my dad, when I was a senior in high school, actually said that out loud, that you all, my career has always come before family. Don't think that didn't pierce my heart. But it also wasn't surprising. And I don't want my kids to ever have a moment like that. And so there are millions of millennials who have had very similar experiences. And so for them, commitment is making sure that you have balance between your personal life and your work life. And if you're expecting me to give up key events in my kid's life or my family's life, if you're expecting me to constantly make them pay a price, skip vacations with building memories, I'm not doing it. That's the entire millennial generation. And so how quitting, this quiet quitting shows up is they will quietly quit when they feel that you don't honor their personal life, that you treat them, that all that value that you bring to the table is what they bring to the organization. And so if you do not have a balanced environment at work that says personal is just as important as professional. Here, you've heard us say, if it's between a professional commitment and a personal commitment with your kids, you better be at that personal commitment with your kids, and we'll work around that. That's what millennials expect today, as a sign that you really care for me. And then with the Yers and the Zers, each generation just gets more intense in that belief. And so a millennial will go, wow, this is really great. I've got a company that really supports life balance. I'm really hip about it. Whereas a Zer will be ticked off that you're disrespecting me because they don't see it as a surprise. It's become a part of their life for the last 20 to 40 years.
It's become an expectation.
That's right.
This is how we operate.
That's right. And if you are expecting me to put in 10 hours a day as a sign of my commitment to you, saranara, I'll go somewhere else. And that is why today we teach organizations how to have high impact within your work hours. In fact, there's a movement today, Nick, and those of you who are watching, that there's a real, there's a lot of research that shows that in 15 years, we won't have a 40-hour work week. We'll have a 30 to 32-hour work week. more like what Europe has right now, with an expectation that we will be as impactful as we are right now in 40. And so that requires us to approach work and efficiency and making sure that we're setting boundaries to make sure that in that period we're at work, we're giving it everything we got. But when we go home, we don't have to feel guilty, and that I've got my full attention on my kids or my spouse. It's a different world. And if a leader cannot adapt to that, you will have a bunch of quiet quitters as a protest of saying that you're not relevant to what my needs are. That's a long-winded response.
It is, but I really appreciated the fact, like, this is the one thing that I heard. I'm a boomer, but I have the attitude of a millennial.
Yes.
That was interesting. So anyone listening to this or watching, you could be in a generation wherever you were born. Boomers are 1946 to 64, like that time frame. You can be in the generation that you were born in and still have an attitude.
And you can adjust.
You can adjust the attitude. You don't have to be in the attitude like, well, I'm a boomer, so I'm gonna approach everything this way. No, we can all learn something new, and we can show up differently, no matter what year we were born.
Yes.
That's just a number. That's a start date.
That's right.
So we're not locked into that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we're definitely not locked into that. Let me show you another way generational differences play itself out in quiet quitting. When I was a young leader, not in leadership, but just starting my first job at an entry-level position, it was understood that I don't ever give my, quote, boss input. I don't ever disagree with my boss. It was understood back then that we lived in an authoritarian society that had not been impacted by technology yet, that if your boss told you what to do, you may not like it, but you understood that was the rules of the road. And if he said jump, you said how high. And if you didn't jump, he would say, or she would say, but back then it was mostly he, unfortunately. But if you didn't jump, he would say, you know what, there's 15 right now that would love to have your job. Because we didn't have an economic infrastructure that provided those kind of choices. Well, what happens is there's a sociological principle that you've heard me talk about, that the more people are exposed to information and ideas, the higher that their exposure becomes, respect for authority decreases. And so what happened is over the last 25 years, all of these kids that grew up for the first time playing PlayStation and on the computer, and for the first time for them, knowledge was two ways. It was interactional. Mm-hmm. And so, plus, they are so well equipped with knowledge that we didn't have as boomers, that now if you don't ask them what they think, they will not only not like it, but they will feel disrespected at the core. And it's not that they don't respect authority, it's that they see themselves as an authority too. And that is why if you have a top-down environment that does not seek input and that does not allow healthy disagreement, the latter three generations will see that as disrespectful and abusive. And they'll go elsewhere. So again, that's another way how generational realities and the experiences of our life have shaped what our expectations are at work and from our leaders and from our peers, and what today is a healthy environment, and what was a healthy environment today wouldn't be tolerated. Yesterday wouldn't be tolerated today. So an effective leader has to become a sociologist to understand some of the nuances of this.
I like how you had said that in terms of understanding. You went way deeper into this generational thing than I thought you would have. I thank you for it. I feel like I could talk to you about an hour about that one very question.